What's up, everybody? I'm Jessica,
And my name's Adam.
and we are so excited to be back with the college podcast. This is our first of many. We just wanted to. A few weeks ago, we asked you guys just some topics of what y'all would like us to talk about. And so, Adam's our first guest, slash, he's also our new intern. Woo woo.
Yeah, let's go.
So, he'll be on this week's podcast, and we'll have more guests to come. So what we're gonna do is a couple weeks ago we asked you guys what y'all wanted to hear, and so we're gonna throw a little twist on it, and we're going to put 5 topics. I picked 5 topics out of the list that we received, and we're gonna pick which one that we do. We have no idea which one we're gonna do, so we're ready. Hopefully, Adam's ready.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let Adam be the picker. This smells really good, by the way.
I kind of want to sniff it again. I'm not looking. Let's see. We got Fighting Temptation.
Oh, okay.
I was hoping that we get this
You
one.
were? Okay, let's go.
A lot.
All right.
Fighting Temptation, I feel like when you hit college especially, like in my college age, like you come into Georgia Southern and, get the topic of we're a party school.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on. And I mean, it's evident, like, whatever you see on campus, like it's all there. But, I think the beginning of like fighting all that temptation, something my mom told me when I first got here is like, what you want to attract to is what's going to come to you.
Yeah.
And so like what you go after is what's going to come to you. And so, like, if you go looking for the partying and all that stuff, like, that's what's going to come after you at the same time. And so, I mean, this is, like, that's why I was excited. I really wanted this topic because, I mean, that's something, like, as college, you continue, like, that's something that's going to turn a little bit bigger. Yeah. And I know as you're away from home as well and you're by yourself, in our day and age, we've gotten very sophisticated in hiding our sin. And we think that, it's kind of crazy to think that you think, like, there's a God of the universe. He's watching everything we're doing. And we're like, I'm going to hide it and he's never going to know. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think about
humans.
it. Yeah. So, yeah, it starts from the beginning. Like, I know something that I wanted to read in was Galatians 5:16. It was Paul talking about, he said, "But I say, walk by the Spirit and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For those are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do." And it's so good in the spot of, like, when we have the Spirit and He's coming down in us and He's in our everyday life, it's that constant fight. And it just reminds me of that spiritual warfare that you have each and every day. And it all starts in your mind. Like, I read this book a couple weeks ago. It was Louis Giglio. It says winning the war on your mind. Yeah. And it just shows, like, in our mind, what you think about is what you're going to do, because it goes down to your heart, and then you start stepping and you go do those things. And it just shows, like, what you're filling your mind with, what you're doing. Like, that's why it's so easy to listen to music and see how, like, especially now, how it degrades people, how it just, like, everything's just thrown out there. How easy it is, you start seeing it in your own life. You start seeing that change, because it's like you start here and then you start walking through your mind with it. You start going down to your heart and then you start doing it more. And you got to, like, tell yourself, like, what I'm going and leading myself to is what's going to be attracted to me. So that's a little bit of, like, how I've seen sin and temptation throughout, like, college. Is like what you're putting in is what you're going to have out.
Absolutely. I'll never forget one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, and pastors that I really listen to a lot. He gave a scenario, like, he preached about, what you truly do allow into your mind affects every decision that you make. And it starts in the mind and then it leads to your heart.
Yeah.
And your heart's deceitful. And so he preached on that one sermon, and then a girl came up to him and was like, "So I just want to ask you, like, I'm probably butchering this just a little, but this is the main gist of it." She asked him, she said, "Why is it that I only attract bad boys?" And he was like, "Well, what kind of music do you listen to?" And she was like, "I'm not asking about what music I listen to." He was like, "No, but what music do you listen to? What do you feed your eyes? Like, what do you watch?" And she was like, "But I'm asking about men. Like, why do I attract that?" And he's like, "What I'm saying is that what you fill your mind with affects everything, who you date."
Yeah,
and
definitely.
she answered the question. He said, "No, but who do you listen to?" And she was like, "Well, I listen to, like, Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus, I can buy myself flowers. And he was like,
Yeah.
this is exactly what I'm saying. You're attracting what you are putting in. And if you're filling your mind with all these worldly things and worldly artists and, selfish desires, then what do you think is going to come out of that? Who do you think you're going to pursue?
Yeah,
If you're
definitely.
looking to the world and the worldly things to satisfy you. And one verse that really popped into my mind whenever I thought about temptation is James 1. And it says in verse 12, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. After they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, God is tempting me. God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. And one thing that I absolutely loved about my Bible is the commentary. And it says, people who live for God often wonder why they still face temptation. That's a question. Like,
Yeah.
why do I face temptation if, like, I'm a Christian?
Yeah. Why me? Yeah.
Why me? Yeah. Well, number one, the Lord also said, like, I wrote it down. Goodness, this was about something else. I'm sorry, y'all.
No, it's, I mean, like going on that, like, like why tempt me? But at the same time, we have to remember, like, when we were in the world, like we were not an enemy to the devil. He didn't have to work overtime. He
No,
didn't have to
not at
do
all.
anything to us. But, the moment we got saved, the moment we said, you know what, I'm denying myself every day, like talks about Mark, I'm denying myself, I'm picking up my cross. He's now working overtime. He's like, now you're an enemy to me.
Oh,
You're a
there's a
threat.
huge target on your
Exactly.
back.
So it's the same way with Adam and Eve. Like in the beginning, like man felt like he ate the fruit, and the snake came and told Eve, he was like just eat it. Like how quick he is to try to get to our mind, and it's
Absolutely.
enticing, and it's like, well, if you eat this fruit, like all these things, and it's the same way as if I do this, I'll feel something. This
Yeah.
30 seconds, whatever it is,
Instant gratification.
instant
That's
gratification
who you
for
are.
it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why we have the temptation is because he knows that our human nature, we want to be gratified. We want something
Absolutely.
instant. Like,
Yeah.
I'll say it, like I'm an impatient person. I like things
Same.
going fast as possible when they happen at my time. And that's where like the enemy knows, like he has a game plan against you. He knows your weaknesses. So that's when you have to work overtime and show him that I have strength in someone else.
You
So
have that armor of God on.
yeah.
But I think of like John 16 where it says like not if but like when you go through trials. And like a lot of times people think like Christians are promised an easy life once they surrender their life to the Lord. I don't know where they got that from because in John 16 it says like you will have trials, you will go
Yeah.
through stuff like but take heart, I've overcome the world. But it just makes me think of that because a lot of times people think like, okay, well, God is good. Like, why is he going to allow me? Why is he going to test me? I mean, I think of Job. Have you ever read Job?
Yeah.
Homeboy went through a lot.
Like
A lot.
and what's funny about that is like when Jesus was talking about that, he said, "Go and test him."
Yeah.
Like,
He
like,
allowed it.
and it's kind of like in our life, if Jesus were to say, "Go and test my son or daughter," how will we react to that?
Yeah.
Because I know when he did that to Job, I was like, "Dang, like you just like left him out to the
Yeah.
dry."
Yeah.
But it's that Jesus has confidence in who he's made you and what he's done for you. That hey, you can go and test my son or daughter, but she's not turning away. He's not turning away. And it just shows like how mature you get in your faith. Because I bet you Job was so mature that he's like, I know my follower, I know my disciple. He's not turning away from me. He's seen and tasted my goodness. And that's where you have to look at in your temptation in your life is, have I truly seen and tasted goodness, or do I assume I've seen and tasted something? Because there's a difference between having a relationship and knowing of somebody.
Absolutely.
Because I can know of anybody on campus. I can know of a lot of things, but it's different from having a relationship and being in depth with somebody.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think like knowing you, like I knew who you were, but we didn't have a relationship. So in my
Yeah.
head, I knew who you were, but like I mean, like now I'm like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Debatable. But anyways, it's just like a relationship with anyone. Like we're
Yeah.
forming a friendship, and just like that with the Lord, like you form a friendship with Him, but you also know that He is good no matter what circumstances, and like you will be tempted. That's the
Yes.
thing is like the Word is telling you you will be tempted, and it's not from the Lord because nothing of temptation comes from God. But what I love about my commentary is like God tests people, but he does not tempt them by trying to seduce them to sin. God allows Satan to tempt people, however, and through these temptations, God refines their faith and helps them grow in their dependence on him. We can resist temptation to sin by turning to God for strength and choosing to obey his word. Temptation always presents us with a choice. So the question is, will we say yes or no? Are you going to flee? You know, are you, when
Yeah.
you are tempted to, let's say, spend the night with your girlfriend or watch porn or go out to the bars and get drunk, like when you're presented with those opportunities, are you allowing those thoughts to really like
Yeah.
creep in and be like, well, I'm gonna have FOMO, I'm gonna miss out, like, but I mean, we're not gonna sleep together, but I mean, I'm 21, I can drink, you
You
know,
try to normalize everything.
absolutely. When in actuality, if you read the Word of God, it'll tell you, if you follow me, you will listen to my commands.
Yeah.
And his word is very concise and his word is very pure and very direct on those things, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and it also just reminds me of when we surrender our life to the Lord, we submit to him. We die to ourselves. We die to our flesh,
right.
our desires, and we're picking up the cross. We're picking up the cross that he bore, he died on for our sins. And so, is your relationship with him more important than your instant gratification?
Yeah, definitely. And like, you just go into that. And like, I seen it something today. Cause like, a lot of times we ask ourselves, like when we feel tempted that like, you know, we expect God to like just take us and just take us right out of that temptation. And that's just how it goes. No, he's putting you through that trial. He's testing you, but he's going to make a way. I seen something today. It said, God parted the Red Sea. He didn't bring them over or anything. He parted the Red Sea.
Yeah.
He said he parted it because he's going to get you through your problems. He's going to make a way for it. And he makes a way for us each and every day, like in our temptation. And one thing when you start seeing your growth is you start seeing when you flee more, then you go and attract into it. And the more that you see that flee, that's the gratification.
Yeah.
That's the instant gratification. Then like, all right, I messed up and now I'm thinking about it. And that's another thing, like, if you go through your temptation, like, we're all going to be tempted. We're all going to fall short. That is the whole
Absolutely.
purpose of why he came down and brought his son. Like, that's what's going to happen. But it's, am I going to beat myself up about it? Or am I going to pick my cross up? I'm like, you know what? I'm not falling down.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the armor on and I'm going to fight this. I'm going to dive into the word. I'm going to fight against everything that's going against me now.
For sure. Yeah, I think of in times where, when I was enslaved to a certain sin and I fell short, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I did this. And I beat myself up and I just continued with that cycle. And it was a cycle that I wasn't allowing the Lord to break. I was going back to my selfish desires. And I just remember like the thought of, as I grew closer to the Lord and I drew near to him, I realized I was like, every time that I sin, it's putting a wedge in between me and Christ.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's exactly what sin does. It produces death and it ruins relationships. And so the more that I walked with the Lord and the more that I sought after him, the more I realized like I don't want to be enslaved to this. Like I don't want to continue this vicious cycle because all it's doing is producing shame and condemnation, and that is not of God. And so something that I heard a pastor say that I will never forget was like, the Lord gives you freedom. He offers you freedom.
Yeah.
Or forgiveness, I'm sorry. The Lord offers you forgiveness, but confessing sin to others offers freedom. You're free from that.
Yeah.
And so I will never forget that because there's so much in confessing sin to one another, to a believer, that will help you and walk with you. Like there's something so powerful about that. And if you have fallen, it is okay. Just know that there is grace, but don't take advantage of that grace. That's my biggest encouragement, is to not take advantage of the grace that the Lord offers you, because that just shows where your heart is and where your walk is, and just how you view the Lord.
Definitely. Yeah, like I even think about like the Lord's Prayer. Whenever he talks about it, he goes, we also have forgiven our debtors and lead us not into temptation and deliver us, like it says, from evil, but then there's other ones, from the evil one. Like he addresses him, and it just shows like the Lord's not leading you to that.
No.
He hates the sin. He doesn't hate the sinner.
Absolutely.
And like, that's the same way we have to be in our life when we go into community and we confess it to each other. Like, it's a banding arms together. We're getting through this together. We're building accountability. We're doing an accountability partnership. Like, we are leading not into temptation, but we're going to deliver each other from that evil one, because that's the freedom that he's given us. He's forgiven us. He's given us grace. Because condemnation, it will tear down your life. It will put you in a hole, and it will put you in a corner to where you feel like no one loves you, no one cares about you, no one can help you, and no one understands you. That is the biggest thing too, is like, he makes you feel as if no one will understand what you're going through. When the reality of it all is, we all been adopted. We all been through it. And it's different from just keeping it to yourself, but he wants you to go to community and help each other. Like, especially like in our church, like you see, I love like every Sunday we come into church and everybody knows everybody. And it's not like a, hey, how you doing? It's a, hey, like, how are you doing? How can I help you? Like, full blown conversations with like people who are different ages than you. So I think it's awesome. Like, get into that community. That's one, if I could give one way to really fight temptation, is get into community. Because your community is going to help you through that.
You're going to confess. You're going to be, and also something that I love to, like, what I love to let people know is that when you're transparent and vulnerable, that's when true community happens. That's when these people know me. These people are going to hold me accountable and push me. And I will never forget, like, that's why I love college age, is because that's where I found Christ, but also that's where I found my community. And the women that I surround myself with, we've walked through seasons of marriage, of children, and it's just beautiful to look back and be like, man, these are the women that I prayed for. And you know where I found each and every one of them? I found them in a small group, in a connect group, one of my first connect groups, and then I started leading, and then I met them that way. So my biggest piece of advice is find believers that will walk alongside you and push you to the cross and not to the bar.
Say it again. Say it again. Say it for the back.
My encouragement is to find believers that will push you to the cross and not to the bar.
And, you always hear, like, you hang out trash, you become trash.
Absolutely.
And that's, like, the honest truth. I know it's a cliche, but, like, if you hang out with people that are full of temptation, full of sin, you're going to fall into that. But if you hang around people and build a community, you're going to meet Jesus, and you're going to meet experience that you don't even imagine the love that's coming after you.
Like, unimaginable. The 5 closest people that you surround yourself with, they will reflect where you are at in your walk with the Lord.
Yeah, I went to Eli and Faith's commissioning. They were going in the army, and this guy, he did this square. He goes, there's faith, family, friends, finances. And he said, if you stay in that square and don't stay out of it, he said, you'll be perfectly fine. And then when he said faith, he goes, if you stay in faith, you meet people who are consistent. You meet people who really care about you. And those workplaces, he said, are always the best ones. And it's just like anybody else. Faith, people who practice that, and followers of Jesus, that's the people that you're going to find the most satisfaction, the most place of, like, I want to be here. I want to be with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think my biggest piece, we'll go with advice now. I think my biggest piece of advice is find people who you can sit at the feet of Jesus with, because those relationships are so much different than those that you sit, I don't know, at the bar with,
Definitely.
like, because I feel like that's just a common thing now, is we're known, Georgia Southern is known for the bar scene, but that can be different. And I believe the Lord is doing something in this generation, and it starts with us, though. Revival starts in our own hearts.
Starts here, yeah, exactly. My best advice, man, find your community and build a strong community in that.
Absolutely.
Be vulnerable.
And flee temptation.
Yes.
Flee it.
Flee it.
Run.
Come talk to us. Get it out of there.
Come talk to us.
We'll help you. We've been through it.
Time and time again.
Get bad.
But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us, and we'll see y'all next week.
All right.
Bye.